All right, we are live, and I'm very excited to bring and introduce you to today's guest. On today's episode, alongside co-host Bianca Léger, we interview a certified Hungry for Happiness food and body coach, a Reiki healer, a one-to-one female embodiment guide who holds many fitness certifications, including personal trainer, Pilates, yoga, and fitness nutrition. With a background in fashion marketing, she still finds herself in love with personal style and using fashion as a means of art and self-expression. This interest has led her to create Good Vintage, which focuses on small batch vintage clothing and other pre-loved goods. Welcome to the Winner's Circle, Brittany and Friesen.
Thank you so much for having me, Derek. It's so nice to be here with you guys. I'm excited.
I'm just as excited.
So this episode, as we were talking before, it's a very positive, uplifting, inspiring episode. And the first question is as such, and that is, what do you love about your world right now, Brittany?
What do I love about my world? I think, honestly, the one thing that I absolutely love is my group of my girlfriends. And it's so funny because I traveled around a lot and here and there, and being back in Toronto and like kind of having a little bit of a home base, I've just really, really reconnected and with old and new friends. And it's just, no matter what life throws at you or what, like, there's so many shifts always and everything's always changing, but my group of like girlfriends just feels like home, feels like family. And I absolutely can say I love that about my life right now. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So speaking about old friends, Bianca is an old friend of mine. We used to work together way back in the day. And it's been over a decade since we last connected.
Yeah,
and
it has been. It's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I've been watching her online, just exploring the world, teaching yoga, all these different trainings. She's lived in Indonesia. She's been in Thailand, Toronto, so many amazing things. But one consistent through the time that I worked in New Brit is she's just such a shining ray, a bright light. And I'm excited to introduce the guest to her with this call. So in order for people to get to know our guest a little bit better, Britt, I asked them this very important question. And it's, what is your mission? And our mission is always changing, but our mission serves as our guiding North Star that leads us on all that we do, whether that be personal, professional, and everywhere in between. So in order for us to get us to catch up to speed with you and where you're at right now, Britt, what is your mission here in this reality plane?
That's a beautiful question. And I've thought about this before. And the one thing that always comes up for me, I think when you just find out like what feels like what has been with you since you were like a little child and like what's consistent, right? Is I feel like I always just am here for bringing love and light to the world and helping other people feel at home with themselves and comfortable and just just some love and just to feel heard. And I feel like in my life I've kind of gone up and down trying to find like a physical home, a physical purpose or whatever that was, but just feeling like love and at home in themselves. And I think that's my mission. That's my mission.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you and I, Britt, we both traveled the world collecting so many tools on our tool belts, whether that be our yoga trainings, our fitness trainings, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So which tools that you hold on your tool belt are you most excited about right now and that you're using?
So right now, definitely would be, exactly. I've been collecting certificates for so long and you're like, oh, after this one, then that'll be good. And I'll have this and that. And the one thing right now that I really, really love and I feel passionate about is my Reiki. I don't know if you've ever received Reiki or know anything about Reiki, but it's just an energy healing. It's just a beautiful modality that it's not like someone else is healing you. It's a tool that you can give to someone that they can really just heal themselves. Because I think we all are always looking for something to fix us, someone to call home, someone to, whatever, numb us out of our personal reality. And I feel like Reiki, for me and for many people, is just this beautiful modality that can heal the physical body, emotional body, spiritual body. And it's just beautiful, and kind of just brings awareness back to you, right? Because I think we are searching, it's just a human thing to search for home and search for comfort and what feels right. And when we can give that to ourselves, then we can feel at home anywhere in any situation, and we don't have to pull from any external validations, So that's exciting. And just being able to use that in the facet of also helping women feel at home in their bodies. Just like when we don't have a physical home, when we don't feel at home in our bodies, and men too, but especially specifically for women, feeling as if, if they're not good at how society puts all these, what we should look like, and what we should be, or what we should have, right? Like we're not good enough. And being able to feel at home and at comfort in our own bodies and in ourselves. So we don't have to find a home in any situation that could be destructive to us or isn't for us, right? That we can always come home to ourselves, and in that way create a wheel that everybody else around us in our worlds can feel like they can be themselves too. So I'm using my coaching, when I did Hungry for Happiness, it was a 10-month course, and it was all about using different modalities to get into our body and not use food, alcohol, anything, any external validation or anything that could just numb us out, and to be in the moment and like with ourselves. And even when it's shitty, like to sit in with ourselves and everything that we are, and just be able to sit in that and move through it rather than away from it, when you can really feel all aspects of yourself, the highs and the lows. Because if you can't feel the lows, if you keep running away from them and try to find something to fix it, you can never feel the highs, as well. So yeah. So yeah, Reiki and just like helping women really just break out of this, what society has told us that we need to be, or what we need to have, that we need to have a boyfriend or a whatever, or be perfect and have all these things, and just really coming into our power, because I really believe in like the power of the female energy and the collective, and I can feel it rising, the energy in the world already. And even as I said, in my group of girlfriends, it's like, it's changing, like what's expected of us. And I think it's amazing. Yeah. So I could go on and on about that forever, but
it's so nice just to hear your passion in it as you speak of it. And we just had a guest recently who was a Reiki master as well. Yeah. And I'm curious to hear about what got you into Reiki, because you were in a program called something Hungry for
Happiness. Yeah.
Hungry for Happiness, a beautiful name.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're doing Reiki now. So it's like you went straight to the energy of I feel like when we're playing with energy, we're going to the deepest layer of everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about what got you into Reiki and how you practice it now.
Yeah. So I actually, before my Hungry for Happiness, before even before even my yoga, I think, I was in Bali, and this was like, I did like a 3 months kind of like journey, and I was just finishing up in Australia. I'd been there for a long time. And, I was like, as Derek was saying, I was like getting all these certificates and doing all these things. But the one thing that really called me was Reiki. And I had done my Reiki. I got my Reiki master in Bali, and, with a man there who he barely even spoke English. So it was like a really interesting experience. And I just felt really called to it. And I I've always been able to just feel the energy so deeply. And I've, even with myself, gone up and down. So I did that. And then, when the pandemic hit, I was like, I just need to I literally, as many of us, I reached like kind of a low. And I think all of, this year and a half has been so ups and downs, and it is a journey, right? It's a total journey. It's like, sometimes I'm like, I'm like crash, but the one thing that got me sort of out of it, out of the lows was Reiki, and just watching it work, as in just like clearing, because when we work through Reiki, we work through the chakras, right? And we work through the body as a whole. And so when we have certain energies blocked in our system that we're walking through life in, and they're blocked, we can't move through all of our full expression, right? And we feel, yeah. So anyways, I was like, since I had taken this course a while ago, I always knew that I loved it, but I wanted to explore it a little deeper. So I ended up retaking my Reiki with a woman here in Toronto, the urban healer, Tamaya, she's amazing. And so I took a couple of courses with her and kind of like reestablished myself within the Reiki, and just kind of learned a little bit more about it, went deeper. And yeah. And now I absolutely love it. And I feel like it's the one thing that, because I love it so much, because it's like, you can really, it's a tool for people to be able to feel it themselves and move through whatever they're going through on their own, without having to use all these other things, but just using our own energy and kind of like putting our focus on that. Yeah. So yeah. If that answers your question, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's a great answer. And I was wondering if you could exemplify how this works. So let's talk. You mentioned you've gone through many ups and downs throughout life, but in particular over this pandemic, there's been lows. So could you just exemplify one low, or just an example of something that you've been dealing with during this pandemic, and how you use Reiki and other tools to help you overcome this challenge? What did that process look like for you?
That's a good question. Okay. So probably some of the lows were just feeling like, post pandemic, I felt so free, and then I could do anything, like, as we all kind of were living. And I felt when it happened, I felt very trapped with myself, trapped with what am I going to do for work or this, or, being able to move freely. But I definitely, one thing was finances, and relationships. And I felt there's some times that I felt very alone, like very, very alone. And it was scary, because it's like, I was forced to just be with myself and to trust in the universe, that the universe that was supporting me, and that I was supported, and that we all are always supported. Right. And it's like, what we focus on and what we put our energy into is, sort of is our reality, what it becomes. And I just focused on getting my energy back up. And it was literally in days and weeks, it was amazing how supported I felt, how I was able to get an amazing job, and that took me traveling throughout the whole pandemic. And I was able to get a lot of support just through Reiki, but also just focusing on getting on my energy right, and believing that there is something higher protecting us and taking care of us all. And yeah.
Wow. Do you find that when you align your energy, everything around you changes naturally, or you also have to take some steps for you to get that job, for you to create the changes? Because I do believe that what is happening on the exterior is a reflection of what's happening inside. But I also wonder about how much force do we need to exert on certain things to create change? Or should all our focus be inwards and aligning our energy? Where do you find the balance with that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think the one thing that popped in my head when you said that was being able to take those steps, because when our energy isn't aligned, and when we're stuck in a story in the past, right? It's the one word I can think of is just fear. And when you can step through the fear, step into the fear, and step into all the dark parts of you that, feel ashamed or that don't feel worthy of what you can have. And you open yourself up to accept those things as well as the good things, right? Accept all aspects of yourself. And then I feel like then that's when you can, there's motion, right? You can put your actions into motion, and then you can like step forward without, even if you're scared, and keep going and keep going and keep going, one step at a time, and believe that you are worthy of everything that you desire. And I think too, also just having a goal of like what you actually want, and not worrying about the hows and, how is it going to look like to get there? Like, how am I going to do it? But just have a desire of your goal, and how does that goal make you feel? Like, what is the feeling that you want to curate throughout the entire system? And just bringing that feeling of how you want to feel into like every area of your life, even when it looks like not the best, like even when you aren't living exactly where you want to live, or when your relationships aren't where you want to live, like how does that person show up, and showing up as that person all the time, even when you're like, oh my gosh, this isn't exactly what I want, but just keep going through, and just knowing that, like, falling back and being like, you are, so something is catching you, and you are going to be okay. And I think for a lot of years, I also was always just like, oh, the universe is like protecting me and whatever. But I would just get thrown things, and, life was good. Like I would get good things, but then at the end of the day, I would just keep coming back to myself and being like, okay, like, and then when you're stuck with yourself, you're like, well, what do you actually want? What do you actually want to create? And like creating that feeling in every area of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Because we really are chasing feelings.
Yeah.
We just want to feel good ultimately.
Yeah.
But it's such a good reminder. It's all we need to hear sometimes, that we are worth putting that energy into ourselves and taking that step. And just hearing somebody say it is just, it's so soothing and inspiring. And it's crazy because just having you say it is a reminder that sometimes it's all it takes for somebody to go and take that step. So
totally. Yeah.
Another thing that's really alive for you right now is your work as a body acceptance coach. And a lot of that has its origin in your Hungry for Happiness 10-month course with Samantha Skelly. Can you get into that course? What drew you to that course? What helped you push past the fear and cross the threshold in enrolling? That's like a very expensive course, and a huge commitment. So there's a lot of fear in just enrolling in that course. And then what did you learn in that course, and what did you take away and implement into your own coaching? And get into that, Britt.
Well, I think what even drew me to it, I think it was a podcast. It was someone's podcast I heard, and I was like, oh, I was in New Zealand at the time. I was living in New Zealand, and I was just going through the motions of life. I wasn't really like no real main goal, but I just always, and I was teaching yoga at the time. And I was just kind of like, I always loved working with the body. And I found, I was finding though exercise was sort of a means of an escape route, right? An escape to like get out of my body sometimes, get out of my head and into my body. But it was becoming more of like an addiction for me as well. And I just knew that there was just so much more that I wanted to give, that I had inside of me to give, as we all do, right? But we're like, oh, no one will listen, no one will care, like whatever, I'm not good enough, this blah blah blah. But I was listening to this podcast, and I was like, I actually remember where I was listening to it in my earphones, I was getting my nails done. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl is like literally she is like this mission. Because often I find too, it's like when we don't act on our mission and our goal, it pops up, right? Like we see it in other people, like those people like kind of cross our paths. And anyways, and I was just like, oh, I've got to do this. But yes, Derek, you're right. It was very expensive. It was a big commitment. I also moved from New Zealand back to Canada midst doing the course. And it was a huge, huge journey. And I was struggling with like my own body issues, and using food to numb, using exercise to numb, and just sort of like trying to escape. One of the main things that the course did and helped me do is now I never like eat emotionally to numb out, or use food as like a kind of distraction, right? Which I was doing, and putting so much, as women do, and men too, but I mean, putting so much emphasis on my outer appearance and like what I looked like, but for other people, like not for me. It was for other people. And now I can fully say, like, after doing the work and going in, and we did lots of energy work, and that's why I kind of like got more into doing more of the Reiki with it, and a lot of other modalities, lots of like she does lots of like Tony Robbins trainings, and I did a lot of Joe Dispenza work as well, and just using the mind. But really just being able to curate this like body in this home that I'm like, I love my body and I love myself for me, not for anybody else. And I think that's so important, because it's like, that's at the end of the day all that matters. And it's the same as like you said, the journey of like coming home. And I always find it so funny, because home for me was like, it never felt like Winnipeg. Like that was just not home. And home for me is like being with my friends that I love, and but anyways, finding that home within my body was like the biggest journey of all, for years and years and years. I used food and alcohol to numb out completely. And finding comfort in my own self and who I was. I think I was able to find that through going into like deeper, darker parts of myself, and accepting and loving that person, and going into like inner child work, which I like to do with clients as well. And going through all of those motions, was a beautiful, beautiful, life-changing experience for me. And it's still a journey, but when I look back, even like before I took the course, I was like, oh my gosh, I was so lost. And I feel like, we'll always be finding different parts of ourselves, but I feel like I'm okay with all different variations of myself, and from where I was, and where I am, and where I'm going, and who I am, and being okay with not being okay, I think is what was the point of change, of pure change for me. And I think that's society and people. That's why there's so much hurt and so much pain and so many distractions. It's like, we're not okay with just like being with ourselves and being in all that. So yeah. So to answer your question, it was a huge commitment. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. And going through it was hard because I almost had to, I couldn't feel the full effects probably till like months after I had even finished the course, because I was just integrating all of the work in myself. And I finally feel, quite confident in myself, in my body, and finding that home in these bones, is so beautiful. And I want to share that with other women and men too. But for me, my passion is really with like the women, and just like rising up and like bringing up the power that's been like, taken down for like, our whole life, and really bringing it back, and so that we can have a voice and we can have a power, and do it for ourselves, and not for how society wants to portray us. Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
So you mentioned using food to numb. So let's talk about that. Like, how do you advise clients that are using food to numb, or alcohol to numb, or gambling, or sex, or drugs, or what can we do with that numbing behavior?
In those moments, I feel like when you want to numb, and going back to like what I was talking about before with feelings, when you want to numb, what is the feeling that you think this food or this alcohol or having sex with this person or doing whatever, what's the feeling that you want to get from that, from that action? And then can you ask yourself in that moment, okay, how can I give myself this feeling in another way? What can I do to soothe myself? What can I do to love myself in a way that isn't going to hurt me or whatever in the end? Or what can I do in this moment? And it's interesting because I actually went through, when I came back to Toronto, I did some therapy, and the best thing my therapist said to me, she was like, Brittany, she's like, in those moments when you're at your low and you're just like reaching for something and you need something, or you need to talk to somebody, right? And those are the moments that like rarely ever in the moment when we are like needing help, do we get it in that moment, right? Like no one seems to be answering their phone or this or that, but like when we really, really need something, it's often we don't get it in that moment, but it's in those moments where we have to learn to self-regulate what we need and take care of ourselves in that way. And I think when we do that, instead of reaching for something, when we can really give ourselves what we need, soothe our inner child, have our inner child kind of take the lead and give them a voice, because our inner child has been around longer than our now selves, right? So they know us so well and on such a deep level, but oftentimes we ignore their voice, and we ignore what they really need. And yeah, so I would just say, what is the feeling that you're trying to gain from this action, from eating this food or overeating, right? Like binge eating and that cycle. It's crazy, because probably like, I would say, I don't even know, like 80% of women that you talk to have had some sort of eating disorder, and it's so sad, and it's so detrimental, and it's more than just the physical. It's so much deeper than that. And because as humans, our main goal is to be we want to be loved, right? As women, we need to be loved. That's our number one. For men, it's we need to feel wanted, right? And needed. And when we can't get that, or if we fear that we're not going to get that by not looking a certain way, or whatever the case may be, our fear gets so heavy, and it's like literally like this trauma response that our body is just like, oh my gosh, like they're not going to love me, or this or that. And we get we get scared, right? We get feared. And that's why too, like using the Reiki and like just opening up all of our systems can just really soften us as humans, and tapping into our own power and take it back, rather than depending on anything outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned the inner child a few times. What is the inner child? How can we connect with the inner child? What have you found on that road?
Yeah. So, I mean, the inner child, some people have heard about it, some people haven't, but our inner child is basically our younger self. And a lot of the times, if certain things have happened, like way back when as children, that were traumas, or that we perceived as traumas because we did not have the tools to help ourselves in that moment when we were younger, whatever it may be, it could be someone just telling us that we're ugly, or that we're fat, or whatever it may be. And if we weren't able to, in that moment, like heal that, we carry it with us, right? Throughout as we get older. And we aren't able, and then when we get the tools to figure it out, to understand it, we can heal it. But we have to go back to that moment of time and think, what was it? That person said that I was ugly, or that person said that I was stupid, right? And so then in your adult life, you may keep coming back to, oh, I'm too stupid to do anything. I'm too stupid to do that. I can never finish anything. I can't do this. So it keeps coming up until we go back and we connect with our inner child, connect with that moment of time, and ask ourselves, in that moment, what did I need? What did I not get? And give ourselves this compassion and love, like for maybe not having for that inner child, and having compassion for our younger self, because our inner child, like I said, has been around longer than our adult self, right? So they're there, and there's this voice, and it just keeps coming up and up, and it's just gonna like loop around. So I do with my clients, and I've done a lot of like mirror work with my inner child, and just meditations of being able to look at yourself through your younger self's eyes, and having compassion for them. And also as your older self, just looking at them and just saying, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for not listening to you. I'm so sorry that you felt that way. How can I help you? And kind of commit to loving that part of you and what happened to you, and feeling compassion for it, and just seeing it, right? Because when we can just bring light to the darkness, in whatever that may have looked like for us, we can heal. It's all about just bringing light to the darkness, and bringing up all of the shit, right? So that we have this beautiful base, base to stand on, base to grow from, and beautiful things can grow from that point. Whereas if we are blogged up, as so many of us are, right, and so many things, and if we can't take a deeper dive and be like, what did I really need in that moment, and have compassion for yourself, for how it happened. Yeah. Yeah.
One area that you mentioned that a lot of people get stuck on is the area of body image. So they're exercising to look better, or dieting, and they're so concerned about how they look to impress the external, to help to appease, like to help like for others.
Yeah.
So talk to us about that body acceptance. What have you learned through that, through your time in Hungry for Happiness and beyond?
I really just feel like, yeah, body acceptance is a huge, huge thing. And like I said before, it's like, it's almost like when we, especially as women, when we don't feel like we're loved and accepted, or when we put our body image on such a pedestal, right? And that could have been from even, I know I did that. And that was just from a young age, right? If you're being praised for the way you look or this or that, it's like you feel like you have this expectation that you have to live up to, right? And it's like real for other people, and it's like really, really detrimental, because obviously society is just trying to sell us everything to look a certain way. And so I feel like, yeah, body acceptance is really has nothing to do with our physical body, but it has everything to do with our mind, and where our mind goes, and what we see as love, right? Where we get love from. And when we can, again, go back to the root, give ourselves love where we need it, give ourselves love, not from anything else, not from anyone, but just from ourselves, and be with ourselves and love ourselves. Even, and I've had clients, and even for myself too, it's like, love yourself, even if you're 10 pounds heavier, 10 pounds lighter. It's like, can we love ourselves the same? Can we like not put so much emphasis on like that goal of like looking a certain way, but how are you feeling in every single moment, in every single phase, right? Then I feel like you can be happy no matter what you look like. No, because you know that you are loved. And it's all about coming home to yourself, having that space to come back to. Otherwise, if we don't have that space in ourselves, if we don't have that feeling of, and it's self-love, it's like, it's blasted all over everything now. It's like, it almost doesn't mean anything because it's just everywhere. Self-love, self-care, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, really, like, what is it? It's like really feeling home inside your body, just like how it feels like to come home when you don't have a space to feel at home in. You'll just search for home in so many other things, right? In any sort of distraction that you can get. And it's just the same as coming into our bodies. How can you feel at home in your body, And a lot of the times, sometimes it's being, hard on yourself, not hard on yourself, but it's understanding yourself and taking away certain distractions. It's not always about adding things. It's about taking away, like maybe taking a break from dating, taking a break from certain things, and just like being with yourself. It can be hard. It can be sticky, but it's the ultimate best thing that you're able to do for yourself. And so that you can create that home always. And when you can do that and align yourself to what feels good for you, what is meant for you will always come running towards you. You're not going to have to run towards anything, and just making life so much more easy breezy, rather than just like, oh my gosh, like clenching our, physical. And then when we clench our physical, it's like our insides too, our whole system is just like, we're not open to anything, right? But like when you can just be with like all aspects of yourselves and love yourself, and you don't have to chase anything ever. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that Reiki and at the whole Hungry for Happiness thing has done for me, is being able to be open to receive. Because I feel like also too, in the self-help world and all this, we want to give, right? Like, we're like givers, and we want to make other people feel good, but you've got to really like make yourself feel good first, and then you can receive, and then you can give from a place that's so authentic, and I think that's what the world needs, just more authenticity rather than just like more like bullshit. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree. So let's examine the concept and the word love. What does the word love mean to you? And what are ways that you love upon yourself?
I think love, that's a good question. Love is, for me, just, I think it's acceptance of wherever I am in the moment. And I think I, like lots of people, am very hard on myself. And I think, oh, I should be doing this. Or it's very easy, especially with like Instagram. And it's very easy to compare ourselves, right? Like to what other people are doing and what other people are whatever involved with. And it's like, you can really just like, when I can just love myself in the moment, just where I am, no expectations, no, negative self-talk, and just be with myself. That's love, I think, and vulnerability, and being vulnerable, which is really hard, I think, to be, but it's the only thing that there is, right? If we can't really have any lasting relationship, if we can't be vulnerable, and that goes for ourselves too. We have to be vulnerable with ourselves. And so when we can do that without the external, reaching for external validations, external comforts, numbing, we can be like, oh wow, this is me. And so I think for so many years I numbed out a lot with food, alcohol, boys, everything. And I feel like in the last few years now, I'm just kind of like relearning who I am, and like understanding exactly, who I am, good and bad. But yeah, love, and how do I give myself love was the question.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, I find I'm the most free when I'm in nature. So just being in nature, just by myself, taking myself out for dinner, doing things, taking care of, doing my passions, basically. Like when I'm doing things that I'm passionate about, like I started like doing good vintage because I love fashion and I love all that kind of stuff. So when I do stuff like that, it's like you don't even think about needing anything else when you're doing your passion. Like it doesn't even matter, or like anyone's opinion of anything doesn't matter when you're doing what feels aligned for you, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think that's when you kind of know when that's when I'm giving myself the most love, is when I'm doing those things and not procrastinating on what I know I'm here to do, and like, and it's ebb and flows, because like it can always change, like what you're here, new passions arise and this and that. But like when you're in that moment, it's like a meditative state, right? And you're just flowing with like your natural gifts and abilities. It feels so good. So that's when I know when I'm giving myself the most love. Yeah. That's how I give myself love.
One way that I give myself self-love is through my yoga practice, which has been very dear and close to my heart for over a decade now. And I know yoga has played an influential role in your story. So let's talk about yoga. What does yoga mean to you, Brittany? What have you learned from your yoga practice, and how has it transformed you?
I think just like it's very getting into the body and getting into getting on my mat. And I really like going to like different teachers and learning new things. Just recently, actually, because now studios are opening up again, and I hadn't practiced in a studio in so long, and just self-practice. And it's so interesting because it's like, I feel like it's just like letting the ego go and letting like, I'll be like, oh, I should be better. I should be whatever. But just recently I'm in this studio that I hadn't been to before. And it's the hardest teacher I've ever had in my life. I'm literally the worst person in there. And it's so funny because like, years ago, I would have been like, oh, I'm never going back to that class. Or like, he'll say like sassy things and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. But then I'm like, I just keep going back and I'm like, and every time I feel like a little bit stronger and like I'm pushing through a little bit more. And like, that's when you grow, right? When you can like let your ego like drop it, like when in yoga, just like sweat it off. And then, yeah, there's a couple of times, like I'm like years ago, if like my yoga teacher had said that to me, I would have been like, oh, I'm never coming back to this class. Like, because my ego would be so inflated, but I'm like, no, I just like keep going back. And I've found that I'm learning a lot. So that's where I'm at the current moment. But yeah, but just like getting out of, and I always find I learn different things through different teachers, and it's so beautiful. And I love teaching as well. But I feel like that's the main thing, right? It's like we're all as much students as we are teachers all the time. And so just being a better student in yoga and in life in general, I think, right? Like we so much to learn from all humans all the time.
Speaking of which, you've lived all around the world. What has been the commonality you've found amongst people around the world, whether that be in New Zealand, Indonesia, Toronto, Winnipeg, and all the places you've lived? What has been the commonality you've seen amongst people in all your travels?
Oh, I like that question. That's really interesting. What's the commonality of people? I think, I've been so lucky to have met so many beautiful souls all over the world and like learned lessons from each of them. And it's been, I'm kind of like writing some stuff right now because I have had so many lessons, but I think the common thing is that we all just want to be seen. We all just want to be loved. And no one knows what they're doing, really. Everyone is just, it's like life. It's like, surprise, you're alive. Like no one asked to be here, but it's like, what are we doing with like our life? But like everyone's sort of, I don't want to say like lost, but everyone's just kind of like here, everyone's just here. Yeah, it's calm down, baby. Everyone's just here. But, everyone is just craving love and craving to be seen, and everyone is living in their reality, right? Of like what they've been given. And there's as much love as there is, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurt. There's a lot of scars, right? And, yeah, at the end of the day, no matter how hard someone's exterior is, there's just like, they just want love. Like we're all just human. We all just want to be loved, and yeah, so everyone just wants to be seen and loved. Yeah.
So you've mentioned so many lessons learned upon the way, through all your travels, through all your highs and lows, that is life. Through it all, what do you feel is the number one life lesson that you've learned on your path thus far that you feel called to share to Bianca, myself, and the audience today?
My biggest lesson is oh wow, that's a good question. My biggest lesson is probably that there's so much to learn, and not everyone has it figured out, and nobody cares as much as you think that they care, really, and as much love and beauty as there is to have, we only have ourselves, and you have to, if you're not comfortable with yourself, you're never going to be comfortable in any situation, and I think that's my biggest lesson is becoming comfortable with me. And because I feel like that was, and it's ironic because like I think I did a lot of traveling, a lot of running, a lot of escaping to to find me, right? But in all those places, I found the same things just keep coming up, the same lessons, the same whatever, the same lessons. And I really feel that we absolutely always just have ourselves, and finding comfort, and healthy comfort and in ourselves is the way that I think we as individuals and, you know, can change the world, really. And yeah, because the world is just people, right? The world, it's just human. We think of it as so big, but it's like when we can just be ourselves, we allow in that moment another person to be themselves, and another person. And so yeah, I feel really lucky to have been able to meet a lot of beautiful souls that have supported me and, you know, inspired me, I think. Yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for all the wisdom, the authenticity, and the light that you shared with us in this conversation. And I want to be responsible with our time. And that leads us to our final two questions that we ask every guest. And that time is now. And the first question is, in 3 words, how would you describe the experience you're having on this earth?
3 words. Okay, probably wild. Wild, beautiful, and what's the word? Just ever flowing, just like, yeah, just continuous movement.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And this next part may or may not make sense to people listening, and that is, I'm about to play with some magic. I'm going to transform us into the future. I believe we're all magicians inside, and we could play with time, and we're going to travel right now. We're going to travel to the future. We're going to travel into the future, and we're going to be alongside an 85-year-old Brittany and Friesen. Where are you? Who are you? What are you doing? And what is the legacy that you've left on your time here on Earth?
That's a beautiful question. Wow, thanks. 85-year-old me, I'm going to be somewhere by the ocean. And I will have left a legacy of love and healing, and just probably have written a couple of books of my journey, and hopefully been able to have helped women come into their power, and so that they can help others come into their power. I think really stepping into that's my big passion. And this like diet culture of the way that society views women, you know, be a part of that in some way. And yeah, probably have a few grandkids, probably a lover or lovers, who knows. And yeah.
So let's stay with that 85-year-old Brit just a little longer. I want you to feel that ocean breeze on your body, full of love, full of healing. You've expressed yourself through your writing, through your books, and through empowering women to come into their own. And I'm going to take us back to the now, the infinite now. But that 85-year-old Brit, she sends you a message. What does she whisper to you in your ear today?
Oh, that's beautiful. Probably, you are loved. You are good enough. Keep going.
Beautiful. Thank you. You are loved. You are good enough. And I'm rooting for you, Britt.
Oh,
keep on
Derek,
going.
Thank you. Your positive energy is so good. I'm so excited for you too, and just so happy of like where you are in your life right now. It's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure reconnecting. Britt, what are your I mean, Bianca, what are your closing thoughts, your closing words on this episode? Bianca.
You shared so many important, like essential pieces. Even just for me, hearing you speak on how to feel at home in ourselves, and how we really do tend to seek outside, and we think that this next thing is going to bring us happiness, or we do have these longings, and you speak truths that we all experience, all of us, the search for just feeling love and feeling like we don't need to chase anything. And I really appreciate how you're being that voice to remind people out there that we have a home within ourselves, and that we can create that sense of safety within ourselves. And I'm really happy that people can also reach out to you if they need support, so that they can find that place of safety and of comfort within themselves wherever they are. And to also all remind each other that we can create whatever we want, and that we can overcome our fears. So it's just a beautiful reminder for everybody listening right now to take that step, to do that thing that lights us up, and to remember that we can do it and that we're worthy of it. So thank you for these reminders. They are just priceless.
Well said, Bianca. And they can find Brittany at brittanyanncoach.com, and on Instagram at I am Brittann, or her Good Vintage at Good Vintage Co. Anywhere else they could find you, Brittany, and any closing words from you?
Yeah, no, thank you guys so much for having me. This was actually so fun. It was so nice to reconnect, and so nice to meet you, Bianca. And yeah, you can, if you are interested, you can DM me. All my information is on there. On Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me. And then from there, all my other information is connected. But yeah, thank you guys so much. That was so lovely.
And to close every episode, we bring our fist in for a digital fist bump. Welcome to the winner circle.
Thank you so much for having me. Oh my gosh.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right.
All right. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Signing out. Much love, everyone.
All right.
Love.